Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host. I'm a filmmaker on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode I pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on streaming. I pick a favourite film from that topic and battle it out against a guest to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Please enjoy part 1. Hello, podsters or podroonies if you prefer. We are back again for 2024, finally. Sorry, it's a bit late. And as Cowboy Bebop is being re-released in cinemas, we are going to have a look at anime films. And of course, I am joined by a regular guest, and they're basically part of the furniture now. It's Christina and Mac from the World of Horror podcast. How are you guys? It's great to see you again.
Hey, Martin.
Great to see you too.
Good.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. It's always great having you on. So again, you guys probably already know, but tell us again what you guys do on your podcast and where can we find you?
We're World of Horror with Mom and Mac, and we take a subgenre of horror each time, and then we pair an international film with an American one. And Mac is my trusty co-host. And you can find us wherever you find this lovely podcast, and we hope you'll check us out.
Awesome. So, Cowboy Bebop then, did you guys ever watch the TV show and the film when it first came out?
I did not. It's like one of the few anime that I have never seen, which I feel like is a blasphemous thing. I feel like it's no offense, but I feel like it's one of those anime that's like, if you don't watch anime, you have seen Cowboy Bebop.
Right.
I mean, people who do watch anime have also watched it, but do you know what I mean? It's like kind of like an entry level. But it's good. I don't mean that in a bad way.
I've not seen it myself, but I know Netflix recently tried to do a live action version with John Cho, and I think it just fell flat on its arse. I think no one watched it.
Yeah, I didn't hear good things about it, but I also feel like it's very, I don't always see the point in doing that. Like, I know that they must have worked really hard on it, but I'm like, why? What's the point?
Yeah, it looks amazing as it is, to be honest. I'm like getting into anime a lot more now, like when Star Wars has now dipped their toe into it, that kind of style. Lots of studios like have created their own little stories for the Star Wars Visions stories, so I really enjoyed those. And like one of the first ones, it's not maybe traditional anime, but like the black and white one. The first story of that show is so gorgeous. So I was just like, I need to get into anime more. And there's been a recent show, Blue Eye Samurai. I absolutely loved that show. I don't know if you guys have watched that, but it's so good. You watched that, Mac?
I haven't watched it yet, but I saw it. The style kind of reminded me a little bit of Arcane, or at least for what the poster I saw. And I did really like Arcane. But yeah, I've heard a lot of people talk about it.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's very bloody and violent, but if you've seen some, samurai films in that kind of feudal Japan era, it's got some great stuff there in that show. So I'm dipping my toe into the anime world a bit more. Yeah, and I must say I really loved both of these films we're going to talk about today. So guys, what was your choice for anime films?
Well, we chose Kiki's Delivery Service, which I don't remember the age I was when I first saw it, but I definitely was a child. It had like a huge impact on me. It maybe Spirited Away was the first Studio Ghibli movie I saw, but then this was like the second one I saw. I don't know. I got into anime at a very young age, and I feel like this movie had a lot to do with that because it's just so beautiful. And now watching it as an adult, it hit me a million times harder. Like, I did not grasp all of the concepts. I don't think you can grasp all of the concepts before you enter maturity. And I think I cried almost throughout the entire time. And I might tear up a little bit talking about it. Okay. It's just like very emotional.
It is, yeah. I'm a crier myself, but I didn't cry at this, but I did. I felt the emotions here. And as you say, like, Miyazaki does like his weird shit sometimes, and there's definitely some weird stuff in here. I'm like, huh? But it's still like a huh, as in cool. It's interesting you pick this one though, because when people talk Miyazaki, they don't necessarily go to this film.
It's true. Yeah, I hear a lot of Spirited Away, My Neighbor Totoro, or Howl's Moving Castle, and I have seen all of those as well, and I liked them. But this one just had like a, I don't know, special impact on me. And I know it's tonally like completely different from Akira, but I guess they're both kind of coming of age films in their own way.
Yeah. Yeah. Very
Technically.
So. So have you seen this one before, Mac? Christina, sorry?
Yeah. I've seen it a couple of times before. I think I've probably watched it with Mac once or twice. And I like Miyazaki a lot as well, but I think I might be more of a Satoshi Kon fan in terms of anime.
Right.
We did Perfect Blue on the podcast. I probably would have gone with Paprika over Kiki's Delivery Service, but I do like this one a lot too. I think it's just gorgeous to look at.
Yeah, and obviously Miyazaki has recently come out of retirement with The Boy and the Heron as well.
I want to see it.
Yeah, it looks, again, like wonderfully weird and beautiful. So I do want to see that. So, guys, what happens in Kiki's Delivery Service?
Well, Kiki's Delivery Service follows young Kiki, who is a witch, and in this world, witches, it's not ever, like, the lore is never super fleshed out, but they are known, but not very common. But when a witch reaches the age of 13, she must go out on her own into the wide world. And it's, sort of a metaphor for leaving home. And I think a lot of people can relate when they go off to college, maybe moving to a new town, and she has to be there for a year. And again, it's not super like defined, but she just has to train to be a witch. And I love this because she starts off with like so excited. She's so pumped. She's so ready to go, but nothing really goes exactly the way she wants. And it's not all like super negative or anything, but like she wants to go to an oceanside town and she finds a perfect one, but it's super busy. And she just ends up in this busy street and is like, "Hi, I'm Kiki and I'm 13 and I would love to stay here." And all these people on the street are just like, "Okay," and just walk away.
Why has she got a broom?
Yeah, and she's like interrupting traffic, and the cops are like, "Hey, you can't do that. Like, you can't just fly in the middle of traffic." But she finds this really nice lady who works at a bakery who lets her stay there, and she's like, "Well, I don't know what my talent is, but I'm good at flying." So she starts her own little delivery service, but along the way, using her talent as a job kind of kills her soul and makes her lose her magic. And she also is dealing with the anxiety of making friends as a kid in a new place, eventually regains her passion after meeting an artist who similarly struggled with their passion for art, and a young boy named Tombo who also wants to fly but is not a witch. And yeah, it got me. I always also drew when I was a kid, or since I was a kid, and I used to think I wanted to do it as a job. And I learned really quickly that there's like no way I could both do it as a job and still love doing it. And I just think Kiki's a great character because she's not perfect. Like, there's so many times where she does things that are like, "Hey girl, it's okay. Don't freak out so much." But I relate to her. There's like a moment where, this boy Tombo really wants to be her friend, and she just keeps leaving him because she's so anxious about it and doesn't feel confident in herself. And you, the viewer, might be like, "Hey girl, it's okay. Like, Tombo clearly likes you." But she's so overcome with so many feelings that she pushes people away. And I feel like that's like incredibly relatable.
Absolutely. And I feel like what's great about this is the kind of the witch stuff. The lack of the witch fantasy stuff doesn't get in the way at all. It's very restrained in that way, which I really liked. Like the confidence in that from Miyazaki. Christina, initial reactions to this one?
One thing I thought that was kind of interesting about this is she ends up like in a kind of French town. And I did a little bit of like panicky research right before we got on. And apparently, like earlier on in Miyazaki's career, he was really intrigued with like the architecture of Europe. And he moved away from that as he got deeper into his career. But this was 90, I think 1990. And a movie like Ponyo, which came out in like 2009, is, totally a Japanese landscape and, a lot more into the like Shinto mythology and that kind of thing. But yeah, that's kind of struck me that like she ends up in some kind of French town. And the bakery and all that, seems very French. So I thought that was an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess if you were Miyazaki or any like Japanese person, it's not super similar, or the architecture is very different. I feel like, not that I'm Japanese, obviously, but like from what I have seen a lot of like the way Japanese streets are made, it is very different. So it would feel, if you were in Kiki's place, maybe you as the viewer would be like, yeah, this is, I don't know how I would navigate this either.
Yeah. Initial reactions for me, I guess like Mac picked this and I was like, oh no, really? Am I going to like this? I'm not sure. This is not really my scene. But how wrong was I? Like, this has got to be one of the sweetest, most charming films I've ever seen. It's so like gorgeous in that way, and just like all the characters are so nice to each other. It's kind of incredible. You just don't really see things like that anymore, even in animation. So that was quite a surprise, just how wholesome and warm this film is. Yeah, and as I said, like I just really admire the restraint of like not going into like more of like a Harry Potter mode and really focusing on all the witch stuff, but they just focus on the life stuff of being a teenage girl, which I found like really great.
Yeah.
So directing then, like I like the opening flying scenes with Kiki on her broom flying to the new city. Like at first I was like, is this good? I'm not sure. When she hits the tree and then another tree in her family is like, I hope she's okay.
Yeah.
And then they hear that she's all right, but we see her again. We don't see her again in that shot, as if she's out of sight behind that tree. Then when we see her again flying, I was just so impressed how good the animation is with like her clothes and hair flapping away, and it doesn't look silly at all. Then when it starts like raining, it looked amazing, and when the lightning strikes and you see like the flashes of the train that she hides in, it looked gorgeous. Big fan of that. Really like that.
Yeah, and I feel like Ghibli films, and then obviously this one in particular, how they have shots and just like still moments with characters, there's so much life in them. Like there's so many little touches that they add that really just like in the middle I paused because I had to fill up like my cat's water bowl, and I like had this moment in my head where I felt like I was still in the movie, because a scene like that would be in the movie. Like they just show simple things like that of a character filling up a pan and putting it down, but even those are like you can't look away, like, and it's just captivating. And then like you said, like the wide scenes of just her flying, like you see the beauty in everything, which I feel like makes it all the sadder later when you learn that she can't remember why she would enjoy doing that, when it's so clear to you watching of like, oh, this is gorgeous. And then it's so heartbreaking that she later is like, I don't even know why I like this. It's like, oh God.
She's doing it because she has to, and she's the only one that can save Tombo at the end.
Yeah.
I am not a fan of heights at all.
Me neither. No.
And I could tell that the animation is so good in this film, is when like Kiki goes on her first delivery and she flies really high and checks her map to work out where to go. And then when she dives back down to a more suitable flying height, I really felt like a slight sinking feeling go down my throat when she did that. It was not cool for me. But that's when you know the animation is great and super effective. Then what struck me is when Kiki is like blown away by a gust of wind. There is no animation effects to show the gust of wind at all. And yet to me, it still kind of feels quite effective in that scene. So I guess Miyazaki was thinking that wind effects just wouldn't look very good or would just be too much. Because I feel like you get a lot of that in other animes, but not here.
Yeah, I feel like it's all in just the movement and how fast she's flown back. And like you said, the flapping of the hair and the clothes that just does all of that work without having to, I don't know. I feel like sometimes there's even restraint in the animation in a way. They do just what they have to.
Well, I was wondering what you guys thought about the cat. There are a couple of scenes where the cat is sweating.
Yeah.
Because he's so nervous, and it's just like this like water effect that's like coming down.
He's soaking the carpet under him.
Yeah, I feel like that is one effect that animation in anime as well that it kind of struggles with a little bit is water. I feel like more modern films can do that better, but it didn't particularly bother me again because the film is so charming and lovely. Like I could give that a bit of a pass, to be honest.
Well, I thought it was silly, and I mean, it's a kind of a common like symbol in anime of like the sweat, bubble or sweat drop that just conveys like I'm nervous, and I feel like it was so fluid.
Yeah, and like the shaky face as well, like when they're nervous.
In the way like Gigi would sometimes like just kind of staticky like move up. Even that little cat conveyed so much emotion without even changing his expression a lot, which was great. And I don't know, as you were saying before, the rain, like even when they will just show her like wringing out her dress and stuff, it's like you don't even have to always show the rain. You can just show how the character is dealing with the rain that conveys that she is drenched, Yeah,
you're not lost on like what Miyazaki is trying to do with the character, even though the animation might seem a tad limited. You're not lost on what they're trying to do. I liked the bicycle sequence where Tombo has this like bike that has like a propeller on the front and Kiki's riding on the back. I feel like if this was done any other way, it just wouldn't look quite right. But because this film is so charming, it just works. I loved how Miyazaki is sort of treating this sequence and most of the film, frankly, like he's directing a live action film. Like the scene feels very slick and sharp with shots that you expect from a live action chase. As the film is animation, the temptation would to do anything because that's what you can do in animation. You can do anything you kind of want. So I loved how the film is directed as if it is a live action movie in a way. And that kind of that sequence kind of shows that.
That's a great point. And I feel like that scene is so dynamic with her moving down to make the curves tighter. And then when that car overtakes the other one, it's so scary. And I feel like then it makes the scenes where they're flying up kind of in a way a little bit more magical because I don't know, like you said, it still does feel a little bit grounded that it then is like, this shouldn't be happening. You can't just fly up in the air. And you see in the characters how incredible that is in their faces and in their reactions after. And even when they're like falling and when Kiki's falling, when she's trying to fly later, like how fast she hits the ground, I don't know, it conveys such a like woomph, like, I don't know, like it's such a defeat, I guess, for how fast she just falls versus how floaty she is when she's able to actually fly.
Christina, favorite shot or scene for you?
I kind of like when the crows, they kind of look like magpies, but the crows are attacking her and it's like really harrowing and the scream is like really, she's really afraid. And how, it just like, that just seemed really terrifying to me. I have a problem with heights too, but the thought of being in the sky and then being attacked by like sky creatures makes it even scarier.
They're tearing the straw out of the broom.
Yes!
I was like, no, it's her mom's broom. Don't do that.
The crows are mean in this film.
They're so mean. But she's a filthy egg stealer, so...
Mac, favorite shot or scene for you?
I guess it's not as like extravagant as a scene, but I feel like in contrast to how beautiful some of the other ones are, the scene where after she leaves Tombo at the beach and just lies face down on her bed. I just feel like it's so sad and so depressing. And I don't know, she's in this dark gray room, you know, as compared to the beautiful world that's outside her. Like she's shutting herself away and she's like, I think there's something wrong with me. And God, I've just been there so many times in my life. And I feel like that's such that's so relatable. And I am so glad that something like that would be depicted, I guess. And I feel like it hits you so hard because it's so dark as compared to everything else.
Yeah, it feels so real, you know, and I feel like Miyazaki is always trying to concentrate on what would a teenage girl do rather than what would a teenage witch would do, you know. Mm-hmm. You know, the witch stuff is kind of almost secondary in this film. That element of the film is still really exciting, but it's not really at the heart of the movie.
Yeah.
My favorite scene is definitely the last action scene where Kiki saves Tombo from the blimp crash. It's pretty spectacular, really, you know, which I didn't really expect at all, because tonally you wouldn't think this type of scene would fit that well with this focus on charm and sweetness pretty much throughout. But it works so well for me because, as I always say, when you leave your best visually inspiring scenes to the end, it's just better for your film as a whole. Here, I love how Miyazaki doesn't make it easy for Kiki to just fly up to the blimp. There's great shots of Kiki flying through a tunnel with loads of people around, and amazing shots of Kiki low to the ground, flying pretty fast. Then a decision you don't see very often in these situations where all the sound cuts out and then Kiki catches Tombo as they're falling. But it's all in a big wide shot, and they both look pretty small. I don't think it's just a case of seeing it from a crowd's perspective. I think it's just in keeping with like the big scale the film is going for now in this scene, and somehow it makes it feel more emotional, and you feel more relieved when you can see more of what's going on. So I did really like the last little bits of action in this movie.
Something in a lot of art, especially with a lot of digital art, which I do a lot of, is like there's a lot of talk of the tool versus like the talent, and I feel like there's so much symbolism in her using that little scrubby brush to fly, of like it's not the implement that she's using either. It's like that's all her spirit that's getting her there, and in the end that's like all you need for something like that. And I feel like sometimes artists get hung up on like the specific tool or like using the most expensive or the best tool, but if you can create using something simple like that, that's all that matters. I feel like that was maybe he's not trying to say exactly that, but that's I mean, since Miyazaki is like an artist and a storyteller, maybe that comes from that place for him too. But yeah, I love that scene.
Yeah, there's no like broom law here where you have to have a certain amount of bristles on the broom to go fast or whatever. Yeah, no, it's just a broom. Just needs one of those. That's it.
Yeah, I wanted to mention the other scene that I like. God, hit me so well was after all of the rigmarole Kiki goes through with getting that pie made for that old woman. And that scene is so special and so beautiful where she's helping her. She's putting her job first before her needs of wanting to go to this party with Tombo. She's being such a nice person, changing light bulbs for this old woman. And finally gets this pie made because she refuses to take this money without helping this old woman, goes through the pouring rain, and this granddaughter is so rude and is like, Grandma brought one of her stupid mackerel pies again, and like the defeat in Kiki's face of just like all of that for this. Like it didn't mean anything. Like it meant a lot to the grandma, of course, but it meant nothing to this girl. And Gigi's like, surely that can't be the granddaughter. But it's just so sad. It's like all of that work for nothing. And I feel like that's how it feels so often sometimes when you try to use your talent as a job, is you'll just meet people like that who don't care. Like they don't care the work you went through.
I definitely agree with you there, but I'm a little bit with the granddaughter because it's a fish pie. I'm like, yeah, I do not like fish pie.
Oh, I mean, it did seem gross.
Chicken pie or something, then yes, totally. But fish pie, come on, no way. Not a
She just
fan.
slams. Oh, and even like the little detail of like when she opens the door, she at first looks excited and then sees it's Kiki and like her face falls. And so you, the viewer,
Yeah.
are also like, oh, wait, what? You know, it's
Yeah.
so defeating.
Definitely. Directing score for me for Kiki's Delivery Service. I think I'll go pretty high, to be honest. I think I just really respect the restrain from Miyazaki here, and in just focusing on charm and really just sticking with the physics that he's laid out and not really going too crazy with like the magic stuff. So yeah, I'll go like an 8.6 for me. How about you guys?
I think I'll go 9.
I'm okay with 9.
Cool. Right, screenplay then. I find how the writing establishes the tone here fascinating because this is a young girl finding her feet in a new city with new people, as you said, Mac. And with these like types of children's stories, they have a particular sweet charm to them, which this film has in spades, of a girl just experiencing a new way of life in a big city, but she's a witch, a witch in training. So what I find fascinating is that Miyazaki isn't tempted to create that charm by animating Kiki to learn how to use more magic, like having a sequence where like Kiki is learning how to float bread all over the place in the bakery or something, making life easier. No, Miyazaki is confident enough to just try to just have the flying and Kiki literally just experiencing life to create the charm in this film. As I said, like this is an animated film. You could easily create some more wild and spectacle driven scenes. So I really admire the restraint here.
Yeah, I agree. And I totally get what he's going for because when she's talking to Tombo about how she learned to fly and how she doesn't even remember the first time that she ever flew because she's just done it since she was young, I again can relate to that in terms of art because it felt like something I just always did. But as then Ursula says later, the artist that she talks to in the woods, it's like, you do just get times or moments where you're like, why did I ever like doing this? I don't even remember what I like doing it for. And that's so depressing when Kiki, she says, well, this is the one thing I'm good at. And even when she starts doing it, she doesn't really know why she likes it. She just does it because she does it and she's good at it. And I feel like maybe many people can relate to that in terms of hobbies or talents, and people tell you, well, this is something you're good at. You should. I mean, I was told my whole life, like, well, you should do this for your job. And it's like, it's just so easier said than done. Coming into adulthood and maturity is learning why you actually like doing that thing. And there is a magic that you kind of lose because it does seem so simple when you're younger sometimes. And then when you get older and you get this comparison with, as Kiki's unable to fly, now the dirigible can fly and Tombo's getting to fly in the dirigible. So now other people, it seems so easy for them and they're succeeding where you're failing. And you're just like, what's wrong with me? This was the thing I'm good at. And I just feel like all of that journey is conveyed in such a real and heartbreaking way. And like you said, like with a lot of restraint, like you don't need crazy scenes, though I think the ending scene is a great crazy scene, but throughout that, you just need to show, or I guess also what I mean is that for everybody else, flying seems like this amazing thing. And for Kiki, it's like, well, I've always done this. This isn't that special to me.
Yeah.
And she has to learn why it's special as she gets older. And I feel like that's a very interesting and poignant idea that I don't feel like has been explored that often.
And I kind of just like how simple this film is and how Miyazaki uses painting and witch flying to basically be the same thing. I know that might be a bit of an oversimplification, but I
think you're right.
Essentially what this film is. And yeah, I just love the weirdness there from Miyazaki. Like where Kiki is going about her job and she's dealing with certain issues on the delivery runs and boys, so it all becomes too stressful for her. And so she can't like fly anymore, as you said, Mac. And some of the people she sends packages to aren't very appreciative at all to Kiki, like with that kid and the stuffed black cat. So she's not really enjoying her job at all. So when the woman from the cabin comes to meet Kiki again and suggests to come and stay with her for a while and to basically say to Kiki, no, you are cool and beautiful. I wouldn't be able to finish this painting without you. You know, it's just a little thing that's just a great pick me up for Kiki. So I just love how simple and complex the message is here. That sometimes you just need a break in life to rediscover your talent, be it painting or witchcraft. Frankly,
Yeah, and it's so real what Ursula says of like she said that when she first started to be unable to paint, she kept painting and realized she was just copying other people. So instead she just lived life, went for walks, looked at sunsets. I was like, "Oh my god, like I need to do that," you know? Like I feel like in this movie there's no like internet or phones or or there's TV, but and it's even harder, I feel like, now to realize that you just need to like not be like you need to be less turned on. I feel like it's so hard to turn your brain off, but you need to do that to rediscover even yourself. And that's like a great message we all could take away.
Yeah, that's why I have a break at Christmas from podcasting. Even though everyone else seems to carry on, I'm like, I need to rest for a bit.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. The painter in the cabin, I forget her name, and Kiki, they seem like so different and completely different characters, but in their own way, they are kind of similar because that painting she paints and finishes is really kind of surreal and it's very abstract, but really a beautiful painting. Like the animation there, I don't know how I guess they just painted it. It looked amazing. And you have Kiki as well. She's a witch, so she's not like part of this society really. There are no other witches around in this city, so they have a unique bond there where they kind of see the world differently a little bit. The woman in the cabin doesn't live in the city as well, so they have kind of a unique look at the world kind of thing, if that makes sense, through her painting and Kiki through her flying as a witch.
I think it's a great moment when Kiki looks at the painting and she doesn't even have the first idea that it could be of her. And then Ursula, as the lady in the cabin, says, well, I did this after I met you. And she's like, that's me? Like, she can't even fathom that that's how somebody else would see her. And you also get that with Tombo in relation to her of like, he has no magical abilities, but also really wants to fly and approaches it at a completely different way. And he finds her talent, like he's smitten with it, like immediately, and wants to be her friend as soon as he meets her. And he is like such a champ. Like he goes through all of her insecurities just to be her friend. Like he just wants to be her friend so badly. And like even then she can't see how other people see, her talent until the end of the movie. I don't know. It's great to see characters with so many perspectives on life. And even in a different way, in the beginning, you can tell she's so like disheartened being in the city. And when she meets, I think her name is Osona, the lady who works at the bakery, she says, well, there's all types of people in the city. I like you a lot. Like that's such a small and simple thing to say, but it's true. Like, yeah, you are going to meet people who are not, your type of person, but like you will meet people who do like you. That's just how it is.
They're all so nice, especially Osona. She's so lovely.
She's the best.
There's just a emphasis on problem solving that I really enjoyed a lot. Like when she first meets Ursula and the doll is all ripped up, and so Ursula's like, well, I've got an idea. And then you cut to Kiki is washing her floor and, Ursula is sewing up the doll. But there just seems to be a lot of that. Like, okay, let's take a minute and let's see if we can figure this out. Osona does that same thing. Like, I have clients. Maybe they could be your first clients. And telephones are really expensive, so why don't you just use my landline, and that kind of thing. And it's all very sweet, and I just love that focus on cooperation. And the other thing that I noticed was Kiki doesn't seem to understand how valuable she is people keep trying to give her money, and she's like, no, this is too much money. And they're like, no, and it keeps
it's a
getting
job.
Yep. And she has to understand that her time and her talent are worth something. And I think that's something that is really good to keep in mind, especially when you're dealing with people who are so sweet. You want to maybe cut them a break, give them the friends and family discount. But actually, it's important to understand your worth and to take a fair, pay for that.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And at that moment where, Osona gives her money and literally says, work is work. Like, that is such a real thing that
we all got to do it.
Yeah, we all have to do it. And you spent time and your talents doing it. And I feel like when people especially use their talents as a job, they find it so difficult to ask for money because for them it feels like a simple thing. And then as we've been saying, like the talent to fly, she's the only person who has that talent in this whole city. So of course she's valuable.
Which or no which, still got to get a job.
Yeah, it sucks though that capitalism is still a thing in this world.
Yeah. For me, like the fear going into this film and when she starts going on her deliveries is that it could feel a bit episodic, but it doesn't at all. Like she only really goes on 2 deliveries and both occasions are quite fun and inventive sequences, as you said, Christina, with the crows and that. And then especially with Gigi and the dog, that was funny. Also, the temptation in this type of story would be to use lots of montages to like move the story along. We don't have any here, which I loved. Because like seeing lots of little bits of Kiki going on lots of different deliveries in a montage. Because for me, like montages sometimes can feel a little unnecessary and quite lazy writing for me just to move the story along. But here, Miyazaki has enough invention and charm here without feeling the need to really rely on spectacle, which I loved. And then that's why the last scene feels so great, because it is kind of a lot of spectacle and it kind of takes you by surprise. You're like, oh wow, I did not expect this. And I know Harry Potter came after this film, but the temptation, because it's an animated film, would be to like Harry Potter it up a little bit, and put lots of like magical montage sequences in here, but they don't. Like Miyazaki is confident enough in his own storytelling that he feels he doesn't need any of that stuff at all, which I really love.
Yeah.
Favorite lines then, people? This definitely has some great lines. I think for me, better ones than in Akira.
Mm-hmm.
I will admit as well that I watched this. I watched the English dubs version, because that was the only one available to me. Same with Akira as well. But there's some good ones. Like, geez, what a snob. Did you see that cat from Gigi?
Love Gigi.
Yeah.
I have one. It was from the scene where she's feeling really depressed. This one just got me. There's something wrong with me. The moment I make friends, I suddenly can't bear to be with them anymore. The cheerful me went off somewhere. Oh God.
It's devastating.
It's so devastating.
Yeah.
I felt so seen in that moment, because it's so frustrating when you are like, why am I like this? And there's obviously a reason. She's homesick and she's anxious, but it doesn't make it any less frustrating.
I think I hear cows. I think I can smell cows. In the train car. That was great.
There was another one with the cows with, we're sorry, we didn't mean to sleep on your breakfast, or something like that.
That was great. If you wake up tomorrow and find a white cat, it's me.
Yes.
When she goes into a new apartment and it's all dusty. That was funny. One of my favorite ones from Gigi. They're mainly Gigi ones, frankly, but when they're flying like really high, looking at the map, he's like, don't look down, but there's an airplane flying under us. It's quite a simple one, but I just found that was quite funny. Gigi, if nobody comes in, I'll have to eat pancakes forever and be fat. I don't know whether that's the actual translation, but that's what it was in the English dub.
It is not. It's so funny because I was able to find the Japanese audio, but I know they must have used just the English subtitles for the English dub, because there were moments like that where I was like, that is not what she said. Like, I'm not fluent, but I know enough to know, like, that's not. And I remember that scene in particular. What she said was just, I'll have to eat it like every day, basically, is what she said. And I was like, she's not saying fat.
Yeah, I mean, I did not trust the Netflix subtitles at all. Netflix are notorious for terrible subtitles, so I was like, I'm not doing that.
Kiki says, if I lose my magic, that means I've lost absolutely everything.
That's how it feels.
It's so rough. I mean, I love it that she's 13. I think that's sort of a really fragile age, and if you have like hung your identity on some talent or something, like that, that's what it feels like. And so I thought that was pretty poignant.
I love when she's talking to Ursula and Ursula's like, yeah, so I would like to draw you. And she goes, why would you want to draw me? I'm not even beautiful, or something like that. And
I was like, don't be silly. You're drawn beautifully.
Right? And I feel like that's such a real idea too of like when you're a kid, you just have these like tenets in your head of like, well, people get painted because they're beautiful. And if you don't see that yourself that way, you're just like, why would you do that then? And how there's so many scenes where the adults just like have to laugh at her because they're like, you don't know anything,
I find some of Ursula's lines pretty funny when they're driving. They're taking a van ride by this farmer, I think, and she says like, oh, you have nice legs or something. The guy says that, and then Ursula says, tell me, what kind of boy has legs like this, mister, or something. That was funny.
Fun fact, I again listened to the Japanese one, and when I heard Ursula's voice, I was like, well, she sounds familiar. I looked it up. Ursula and Kiki have the same Japanese voice actress, which I thought was interesting.
Oh, really?
Oh.
But they sound completely different in the movie. But that must be intentional.
Mm.
In the English dub, Kiki is played by Kirsten Dunst, apparently, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and Janine Garofalo is the artist. So
cool. But I think my favorite line is obviously one of Gigi's towards the end, when obviously he has the hots for the white cat. And Gigi's like, good morning. Perhaps we got off on the wrong paw. Allow me to introduce myself. The name's Gigi. I was like, bit of James Bondiness in there, which I found funny.
Yeah.
So screenplay score for me, I just love this story, to be honest. I love how restrained it is, again, in the writing as well as the directing, and it's just got a great message, but it's really powerful and emotional. Didn't make me cry, but this is just the first time I've watched this, and I'm still kind of getting into anime a little bit, but yeah, I still really love this film, so I think I'm gonna go a straight 9, to be honest.
I think I'll go 9 as well.
I'm okay with that.
Right, voice acting then. So obviously I've said that this was the English dub for me. One thing I found really interesting was during the bicycle sequence, I found it interesting where the actor playing Tombo has this reverberating effect, like it's distorting his voice while he's riding the bike as he's really close to the propeller. I'm not sure how I feel about that, as there's no effect on Kiki's voice. I don't know whether it's just because she's on the back seat of the bike, but I guess, it's trying to show how powerful and loud this propeller is. Like, they could have easily not used that effect, and I don't think it would have... I don't think I would have seen that scene any differently, so I don't know. It was just an interesting choice there. Is that the same with the
No, they didn't have that. No? It's an interesting choice.
Oh, okay.
I watched half and half, so I started with the Japanese version, and then I switched over to the English. So I heard that effect, Martin. So I don't know. I like Phil Hartman. He plays Gigi the cat, but it's a cartoony cat voice. Mac, did you listen to any of the English at all?
I know I originally watched it in the English, but I'm unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, I know people put a lot of work into the dubs. I'm a bit of a original audio purist most of the time because I always want to hear.
Yeah. That's always the best way to watch it. Yeah.
So I think I watched a bit of the trailer and I was like, hard pass. I was just saying this to my mom earlier. I just have a bit of like, some big name actors are very talented when it comes to voice acting. Like I know in the newest movie, Robert Pattinson like put everything into being that Heron, and I think did a really great job from what I've heard. But I feel like for some reason they always just try to pick the biggest name people they could find for Miyazaki dubs. And I feel like it is a little bit of a disservice because you should just pick who the best voice actor is. And as I said, I watch a lot of anime, so there's a lot of Japanese voice actors whose career I like to follow. And there were a few in this movie who I really like. The guy who played Tombo is just like a industry great, Kappei Yamaguchi. And I just thought he did such a great job as Tombo. And so, yeah, I wish they would. Japanese voice acting seems to care more about what fits the character the best, and I wish all dubs would do the same thing, but I feel like they don't always.
Yeah, there's definitely an element of just trying to sell the film, isn't it? And we have to have a big name for the dub for Western audiences to watch it. And as you said, Mac, you know, with the Japanese language ones, it's they're just trying to find the best actor for the role, and that's always the way to do it in any movie, really. Yeah, because it's interesting. There was this whole thing with, well, no, forget that. I was just going to say like the Scarlett Johansson casting for the Ghost in the Shell film, but it's not really the same thing. But
well, it is. I think as a trying to appeal more to Western audiences, but that was just such an abomination. Right. Terrible.
Because there are like Japanese actors in that live action film, but
or Asian anyway.
Yeah, but they choose a big name to star as Ghost, or Major, she's called, isn't it? Which is disappointing. Obviously, nothing against Scarlett Johansson, but like, come on, this is a Japanese story.
Yeah, I feel like it's a disservice to viewers too, because I don't know. To me, it's like, I mean, I know there must be some people who will see something because there's a big name in it. That's why they do it. But I feel like it's not giving viewers enough credit. I feel like if the story's good enough or the movie seems good enough, people are going to watch it. And again, sometimes like in Kung Fu Panda, I think Jack Black is a great voice actor, and it's kind of best of both worlds, but that's not every case, and you should only try to find the Jack Blacks if they're there. And then if not, just pick a good voice actor,
Yeah. Skadoosh. I do love those films.
He's great.
So I'm sorry, I just looked up Kirsten Dunst's age, and if the internet is to be believed, she was born in 1982, and so she was a literal child when she was doing the voice for this.
Yeah, she was great, I find. I didn't have a problem with her voice at all in the dub. I feel like certainly with the dubbing, sometimes it could feel very like overemphasized. I definitely felt that in Akira, like it's all very not try hard, but like they're really just going for it a lot. I know we'll get to that in that film, but like it's a lot. But going back to Kiki, I loved the baker's voice. Asano's husband was really funny to me in a great way because he actually hardly says anything in the film in the English dub, but he mainly makes noises and grunts his way through the scenes. And it reminded me a lot of the Shaun the Sheep movies from Ardnam. I don't know if you've watched those films where all the characters in those films don't speak at all. It's all grunts and noises from all the characters to tell the story, and it works so well. Very, very British. So I wonder if these kind of little characters, these early characters from Miyazaki, were an inspiration for Ardnam and the guys there writing those films. So I really love the baker in this.
He was great. Remember when he made that sign for Kiki and then like he kind of hid and was kind of peeking to see her reaction, and then she immediately hugs him after she sees the sign he made out of bread? I was like, oh, my heart. So cute.
So favorite voice performance for you, Christina? Who are you going for?
I guess Kirsten Dunst as Kiki.
Yeah, same here. Kirsten Dunst, I think, does a great job. Mac, as you've watched this many times in the right version, who are you going for?
Let's see. I mean, I think the actress who plays Kiki, unfortunately, I can't remember her name right now, does great. But I guess I'll have to say Kape Yamaguchi, who does Tombo, because
Right.
I don't know, that guy's really good. And I feel like you could make that character kind of annoying because he has a lot of like, moments, but somehow he wasn't annoying in the Japanese. So
I think he was kind of annoying in the English.
Yeah, it's
a little bit, yeah.
That's the fine line. Dubs don't always reach that sweet spot that like they try to emulate it and you just can't in the same way, I think.
Yeah. So voice acting score for me, I feel like it's a little bit unfair judging the English dub but not the Japanese one, but hey, that's the only one that was available to
That's
me.
fair.
But I feel like they do a better job here than they do in Akira, personally. I think it kind of suits the tone a little bit more in this film, Kiki's Delivery Service. So I'll go like an 8.2 for me. How about you guys?
I guess I'll say 8.5 because I didn't feel like there was anything that special.
Right.
But it was like fine.
Yeah.
Okay. 8.5?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Cool. Right, let's add up the scores then for Kiki's Delivery Service. Kiki's Delivery Service gets a very respectable... Kiki's... That's a difficult title to say. Kiki's Delivery Service gets 52.3, which is pretty good.
Yay!
For the first film reviewed for 2024. That's it for part 1. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out part 2 to see who wins. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell me what your favourite films are relating to the episode. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast, for X at FVF_podcast. Plus, we are now on YouTube, so hit that like button and comment there. If you do, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off. Thank you.